My cousin, Lin, had a relationship that was both admirable and profoundly haunting. She and her partner, Dong, had been together since middle school. To any observer, it was clear that Dong's love for Lin was far deeper. He cherished every gift she gave him, even a simple hat bought from a local market, as if it were a priceless diamond. However, fire cannot be wrapped in paper. Lin betrayed his trust twice by seeing other men. Astonishingly, both times Dung chose to stay. He stood before her, calm yet broken, and said, "Cut off all contact with him, and I will act as if nothing ever happened." The turning point came when Ling was diagnosed with a blood tumor. Throughout her long and grueling treatment, Deng never left her side. He tirelessly shuttled her family between the countryside and the city, providing unconditional care. Lin's parents loved him like their own son. Finally, after surviving those storms, they wed. We all thought it was the perfect happily ever after for a man of such immense tolerance. But life had a cruel twist. Exactly 3 months after the wedding, Dung abruptly demanded a divorce. Even when Lin revealed she was pregnant, Dung remained unshakable in his decision. The marriage collapsed, leaving both families in shock and Lin spiraling into deep depression. Perhaps Dong's forgiveness over the years wasn't about forgetting, it was an endurance that reached its breaking point the moment his perceived debt of devotion was paid. After the day Dong packed his bags and left, I went to see him. I couldn't comprehend how a man who once cherished my cousin more than life itself could be so heartless, especially while she was pregnant. Through a thick cloud of cigarette smoke, Dong looked at me with a bitter, cynical smirk. He showed me a photo on his phone. In it, he was smiling brightly next to another woman, someone plain looking, but with a sense of peace in her eyes that Lin never possessed. Dung whispered, "You know, I met her on the exact day Lin betrayed me for the second time." As it turned out, his long-standing tolerance was nothing more than a flawless performance. Dung confessed that from the moment Lin cheated again, his heart had completely died. He no longer loved her. All that remained was duty and revenge. He had met this other woman who had also been betrayed, and they found solace in each other. Dung had been secretly maintaining that relationship throughout the 2 years Lin was undergoing treatment. Why wait until now? Why get married just to divorce? I asked, trembling. Dung looked out the window, his gaze cold. I wanted Lin to feel what it's like to be abandoned at her happiest moment, when she believed I was her only sanctuary. I've paid my debt to her family during those days in the hospital. Now, it's time for me to live for the person who actually values me. As for the child, I will provide support, but I can no longer stay in this glass cage of lies. I stood there, frozen. It turned out the third party wasn't a home wrecker, but Dung's lifeline during the months he played the role of the devoted lover. It was a revenge that was sweet, yet bone-chillingly cruel. The atmosphere that afternoon was so thick and suffocating it was hard to breathe. I was the one who arranged this meeting at a secluded suburban cafe unable to watch Lin wither away from depression while Dung vanished like a ghost from her life. Lin arrived, her face pale, her hands trembling as they touched the slight bump of her belly beneath a loose shirt. When Dung walked in with the woman named Mai, Lin nearly collapsed. Mai wasn't glamorous, but she stood beside Dung with a composure that sent shivers down my spine. Lin choked out, her voice breaking. Dung, why? Why now? What did our baby do wrong? Dung didn't look at her. His gaze was fixed on his cold cup of coffee. The child is innocent, but this marriage was a mistake from the very beginning. I tried, Lin. I tried to wait until you recovered, to wait until I had repaid my debt of gratitude to your parents. Lin screamed through her tears. And what about her? When did she appear? Did you betray me just to get revenge? That's when Mai spoke up, her voice eerily calm. Lin, I didn't steal him from you. I was with him on the nights he sat alone in the hospital corridors, crying because you deceived him time and time again, while he was still struggling to pay your medical bills. I am not his revenge. I am his choice after he was completely exhausted by you. I couldn't help myself. I slammed the table and questioned Dung. But Dung, was the wedding necessary? You gave her the ultimate hope only to extinguish it right when she became pregnant. Don't you think you're being too cruel? Dung looked up, his eyes bloodshot. You asked me if I'm cruel? When Lin lay in that hospital bed, swearing she loved me while texting her ex behind my back, did you think she was cruel? I married her because it was the wish of both our parents. But I am divorcing her because I cannot continue to act every time I touch a woman who has lied to me so many times. I am human too. I feel pain. The room fell into a dead silence. Lin could do nothing but sob uncontrollably, her thin shoulders shaking. The truth was like a blade, severing the last shred of hope for reconciliation. Dung stood up, took Mai's hand, and walked out without a single backward glance at his pregnant wife. I stood blocking the door, looking straight into Dung's eyes, my voice firm yet filled with heartache. Dung, stop right there. I only have one question for you. Do you want your child to grow up in a cycle of hatred and brokenness like this? Look at yourself. Are you turning into exactly what your parents feared? Dung froze, his shoulders trembling. I continue, my voice softening. Do you remember our grandparents? Back in their day, when something was broken, people fixed it. They didn't just throw it away. Grandma once told me that when they were young, Grandpa also made mistakes. He was reckless and neglected the family. But Grandma didn't choose revenge. She chose true tolerance, using patience to touch his heart because she wanted your parents to have a real home. It was thanks to that grace that your parents grew up to be decent people and that you are here today. I pointed toward Lin, who was collapsed in her chair. Lin was wrong. I don't deny that. She was selfish and hurt you deeply. But Dong, our elders taught us, one should not strike those who have returned seeking penance. You stayed by her side when she was at death's door. You saved her life. Are you really going to kill her soul now, along with the unborn child in her womb? If you live like this, You aren't just abandoning Lynn, you are trampling on the very kindness that your parents and grandparents worked so hard to instill in you. Do you want your child to grow up knowing that their father meticulously planned to abandon their mother at her most vulnerable moment? Dong remained silent, his grip on Mai's hand slowly loosening. His bloodshot eyes stared into the void, as if he were caught in a violent struggle between his current resentment and the teachings of his ancestors. Mai stood beside him, her head bowed, unable to utter a word. The room was filled only with Lynn's choked sobs and the heavy breathing of people standing on the razor-thin line between forgiveness and vendetta. Just as I finished speaking about our grandparents' values, Dung suddenly burst into laughter. It wasn't a laugh of joy, but a dry, hollow cackle filled with disgust. He let go of Mai's hand, stepped toward Lin, and stared intensely at his trembling wife. "You're right. Our elders taught us to repair, not discard. But sister, people only fix things that still hold value. No one tries to patch up something that is rotten to the core." Tung turned to Lin, his voice as cold as ice. "Tell me, Lin, whose child is this? Is it the result of that year-end party trip with your former company?" The room went deathly silent. Lin looked up, her face drained of all color, her lips stammering but unable to form words. Dang's voice deepened, each word hitting like a sledgehammer. "Did you think I didn't know? You told me it was a business trip, but in reality, you were away with that man. You got drunk and made the same mistake again, right after I had just taken you for your medical checkup. I stayed silent, waiting to see if you would confess, but instead, you chose to use this child to trap me in a fake marriage." I looked at Lynn in shock, hoping she would deny it, but her silence and the tears streaming down her face told the whole story. As it turned out, Dang's tolerance hadn't run dry because of selfishness, but because of a betrayal that was simply too much to bear happening while he was giving his all to care for her. Dung turned to me, his eyes filled with agony. "Do you see now? I wanted to be a decent man like our grandparents taught us, but she didn't give me that chance. This child, if it's mine, I will take responsibility. But if it's the evidence of this final deception, then I'm sorry, I cannot be noble for a single second longer." With that, Dong turned and walked straight out the door. Mai followed silently behind him. Lin collapsed onto the floor, her sobs stifled in her throat. It was a ruin, with no way back. Lin collapsed, stammering incoherently, while Dong had already disappeared behind the door with Mai. I rushed to support her, feeling a mix of anger and pity, ready to scold her for that foolishness at the year-end party. But Lin suddenly grabbed my arm, her eyes no longer filled with remorse, but with utter horror. Um, Sister, actually, there was no other man that night." I froze. "What are you saying?" Dong said you got drunk and went off with someone. Lin sobbed uncontrollably. "I was set up. It was Dong who arranged that trip. He told me it was an anniversary gift for my recovery. He got me drunk and took me to the hotel. When I woke up the next morning, I was lying next to a stranger. I was so terrified. I thought I had made a mistake while drunk, so I didn't dare tell him. For months, I lived in guilt, thinking I was a ruined woman who didn't deserve him. I stood there, paralyzed. A chill ran down my spine. If what Lin said was true, then the child in her womb. Lin, are you sure? Trembling, Lin showed me an old message from an unknown number, sent on the very day of their divorce. Thank you for playing the perfect traitor. I spent quite a bit of money hiring that guy to act with you in that hotel. Now we're even. I saved your life, and now I've taken away your honor, your family, and your self respect. That child is mine, but I will never acknowledge it as the child of an adulterous mother. As it turned out, Dong wasn't noble at all. He was a devoted man who had twisted into a demon. He didn't save Lin's life out of love. He kept her alive so she could endure the most agonizing punishment. He orchestrated a fake affair to have a justified reason for divorce, making the whole world turn against her and forcing her to live in self-loathing forever. The man who once cherished a simple straw hat like a diamond had used that very love to forge a blade, delivering a fatal blow to the woman he once adored.